Yes, another boring, profitable session. But we do talk about GTO or game theory optimal theory. So, PokerSnowie, good stuff like that. Stick around. Okay, we're going to play some 25 NL zone poker on Ignition. We're going to do a 15-20 minute session, something like that, just to get some hands in and to work on bankroll building. So that's the plan here. So normal thing, six max game, we're going to treat the last two seats, the button and the cutoff, as late position. And we're going to treat under the gun and under the gun +1 as early position. And so we're going to be pretty tight, pretty snug in the first couple of seats and progressively looser in the last two seats. Going to fold the 10-3 suited here. And above all, we're going to be very aggressive. Only in rare situations, set mining, calling with some suited connectors in special conditions in late position, are we going to limp. We're never going to open limp, but in some cases we might limp behind. This is one of those situations where it looks like you want to limp behind, but remember, we're going to be out of position multi-way with a suited gapper. Really tough to play. This is not a plus EV play, hand to call with in that seat. If we were on the button, we'd very likely call that, but not there. And so we're going to let that one go. We're going to raise, open raise the ace-8 suited in the small blind. Pure steal attempt here. We have some equity with the ace, but we're happy he folded. Now the ace-6 offsuit under the gun, too loose to play. And I've heard from some of you that I play a little bit too tight in the early position, and that's great. You're welcome to those opinions. You're not going to get me to change easily. I am absolutely open to arguments as to why it makes sense to do that. I'm going to open the ace-deuce off here as a steal also. But this method that I play, I'm going to go ahead and c-bet here. Very dry board. There's some clubs I have to worry about. Maybe nines are not in his range. So that's a pretty easy c-bet board there. Pretty dry board. So again, I'm open to arguments as to why I should open up my game more in the early seats. But I'd like to hear real arguments. I'd like to see some real math or some hard data, that sort of thing. And I'd love to see that, in fact. But just telling me I'm playing too tight is not sufficient. I've played lots and lots of poker hands, north of 3 million hands. It was hard for me to believe that when I saw it. I'm gonna open raise the ace-9 off. And looking back through all my data and all the work that Monsieur and I did, again, fairly dry flop here. Paired boards like this are fairly dry. I'm going to not get a lot of money invested in here if the guy sticks around. May not believe me if he's got an overpair or sevens or eights or something like that, and he'll get sticky in that regard, but I'm going to c-bet that a lot of the time. Anyway, getting back to what I was saying, did a lot of analysis on hands and did a lot of math. And the starting hand recommendations that are on the website at www.exceptionalpoker.com, if you go there and look at our preflop starting hand selection, those are based on real numbers. They're not just, what you see a lot of times, what people do a lot of times, so-called poker experts, is they just say, "Hey, this is what I've been doing," and that's fine if that works for them. But I don't like to teach that sort of thing. I want to actually back up everything with real math and real data and real results, and that's what Monsieur and I did when we went through the all those hands of data and did expected value calculations on them. and analyses on them. That's where we came up with our starting hand recommendations. So if you've done something similar, or you've got other data as to why we might want to open up starting hands a little bit different, would love to hear it. In fact, Le Monsieur, my pseudo business partner in this endeavor, on the preflop stuff, is sort of off on his own now, doing some of that analysis as well. He's taking another second look at it. He's using a program called PokerSnowie. Pretty dry flop again. Again, I'm going to c-bet a lot here on this board. And unless this guy has a piece of that, he can't continue. And that's what I'm counting on there. So anyway, Ben, Le Monsieur, is off running PokerSnowie, which is an AI-based hand player, where you can run lots of different simulations and things. Okay, we've got 2 overcards to us here. He's leading into us. It's pretty hard for us to... let me think about this. I'm actually going to float one street. I've got position, and it's hard for me to believe him. And now that the board is paired, I can rep the king. I'm going to turn my hand into a bluff. It's going to be very hard for him to continue without a king or diamonds in his hands. And so... that's why I called there. And that's the beauty of position, is that we can do that. We can elect to fold there if there's some read or tell we have that makes us think he's hit that flop pretty hard. But betting out that weird size, that 75 cents on the flop on that board, felt weird. And I think floating one street and trying to take it away on a turn is absolutely fine. I'm going to fold the ace-8 off here. Anyway, Ben, Le Monsieur, is off running all kinds of PokerSnowie examples. He's looking at game theory optimal, or GTO, analysis of poker, preflop starting hands. And for the most part, he's posted, he did a guest post, which I just put on the blog, in fact, this morning. For the most part, the preflop starting hand stuff, the PokerSnowie, which claims to have run trillions of hands, example hands. Yes, trillions. It lines up pretty well with ours. Okay, so he limped. We checked. I'm gonna go ahead and semi-bluff here and donk into him. It's not technically a donk because he limped, but I'm gonna go ahead and just bet there. Anyway, Ben's discovered that PokerSnowie agrees with our starting hand selection pretty closely. It's got some differences that he talks about in the guest post. Where it mainly differs, though, I'm going to let the 8-5 off go. Where it mainly differs is the bet sizing, and it's perhaps even tighter than us on recommending calls. PokerSnowie, the AI program, basically says never call. It's not quite accurate. This is a tough one. Okay, so we've got a 75 cent open under the gun. If I raise here, I'm bloating a pot out of position with ace-queen suited, which plays pretty tough out of position. I'm going to call and then reevaluate here. Fold is perfectly fine. Pretty dry board, doesn't hit his range very hard, and we got sat out of the poker hand for some reason. How bizarre. Boy, Ignition Poker has been glitchy lately for me. It doesn't want to log in for me very often. I've reinstalled the software, but they've got some buggy stuff going on there. They claim I get these disconnect from the internet things. I get a lot of weird error messages on Ignition these days, and hopefully they'll fix that. I'm going to fold the queen 8. So PokerSnowie recommends calling very infrequently. I call a lot with set mining, deuces through 8s kind of hands. I call with sometimes in late position with suited connectors and suited gappers and those kind of things. And PokerSnowie, for the most part, does not like calling. They recommend some calls, but for the most part, they advocate a raise or fold approach to poker, which isn't bad. That's something that I've preached and taught to a lot of students. And in fact, it's an exercise that I often make a student go through. We sweat a session. We get a session going, and then the the student has to raise or fold. There is no calling allowed. We do 30 or 40 minutes of that, and over and over, I'll repeat that in different sessions. We get together again now and then and do that, and it just reinforces this idea that aggression is so important to winning at poker, because there's two ways to win a poker hand. It's get everybody else to fold, or to show down the best hand when you get to the river. And if you're not raising, then that first method, get everybody else to fold, isn't possible. It just doesn't happen unless you're in the big blind and everybody folds around you. But otherwise, to get other people to fold, you have to bet, which means aggression. And so, in that regard, I think the PokerSnowie idea of raise or fold 99% of the time has a lot of merit to it, and it's going to make me think. I think the work that Ben is doing, Monsieur is doing, is making me rethink this. Okay, so we got a gut shot here, backdoor flush draw. This is a one and done thing. If he sticks around, we're done. Okay, we spiked a queen, but we're not going anywhere. Now we've got the straight, we've got the nuts. I want to bet small enough that he pays me off, but not too big that he folds. So, something like this isn't bad. I'm hoping he's going to call with an ace here, a naked ace. And he's thinking about it. Maybe I should have bet a little bit lower than that to get him to stick around. That's a tough call there. Tough judgment call. So anyway, the work Ben's doing is making me rethink even the call set mining situations and all. I'm not quite ready to give it up. I need to see a little bit more data on it, but it's certainly a thought-provoking piece that he put together today. So I encourage you to read it. It's what is today's date? If you go over to exceptionalpoker.com, it's the 7th of January. Actually, now that I say that, I don't think I actually have dates on my blog posts. I think I disabled that a while ago. But anyway, if you search GTO or Game Theory Optimal, if you're watching this video later than January of 2017, to find it on the blog, you can find it there. Just in the search box on the site, type in Game Theory Optimal or PokerSnowie, one word. Poker, S-N-O-W-I-E, I think is how they spell it. And you'll find the article. It's definitely worth a read. Okay, I'm going to fold here. I'm going to play for another 4 or 5 minutes and then shut it down. This is just felt like doing a video, felt like doing a 20-minute session here. I been working this morning. It's Saturday morning. I'm trying to get a lot of my presentation done I've got to do for a big course I'm giving, and been working on that all morning, and I just needed a break, needed to play some cards. And so that's what we're doing here. As always, I'd love to hear your comments on the play, on what I'm doing here. If you got any questions about any of the hands I played, I know I've made a mistake or two. Your job, your homework assignment is to find my mistakes. Seriously, if you see something that's funny or odd or it doesn't make sense to you, drop me a line, and I'd love to discuss it with you. Send me an email at mark@exceptionalpoker.com, and we can talk about it, or leave a comment in the down below if you're watching this on YouTube, or up above in the comment button if you're watching this on my website. Going to let the 6-5 off go. 8-7 off go. Anyway, if you see something funny, drop me a line and we can talk about it. I'm certainly not infallible, and I think I made at least one mistake in hindsight here in this session. I won't tell you what it is. I'll let you go back and play it. But seriously, I was chatting about something and made a fold that I maybe shouldn't have. A little too loose of a fold in the early position. So you might spot that, might ask me about that, but you might also find something else that I do odd. So planning on doing some hand reading blog posts in the new year. I've got to get past this big course I'm doing, but I'm getting a little bit excited about hand reading. I've been doing a lot of reading on the subject, no pun intended, a lot of research on tells and bet sizing stuff, bet sizing tells, and how you put players on ranges and hands. There's some good material out there. Ed Miller's got a really good book on this that I own. That's kind of got me interested in the subject. But Split Suit, James Sweeney Split Suit over on Red Chip Poker has a pretty good course on it. Little pricey of a course, but I think worth it if you're serious about the subject. And then been doing gathering a lot of materials that I've been collecting over the years, the stuff I've read online and clipped out of books and highlighted in books and things like that. It's kind of coming together, kind of gelling in my head how all of hand reading fits together. I think I'm a pretty good hand reader. I think I do a pretty good job of putting opponents on hands. I'm not so sure if I do a great job at describing that process in my mind to other people. And so my plan is to sort of get this down on paper in a more logical, linear, cohesive fashion and make it something that a beginning or more accurately an intermediate player could use to get better at hand reading. So have some really interesting thoughts on it. Some stuff that I haven't really seen anywhere else before that I think can be helpful. So visit the website, and over the coming months, and I should be putting some of that together. And it's going to be the usual way that I do the blog posts. Small posts here and there, and it sort of builds. And at the end of the day, I collect it all at some web page. It's got it all that kind of hangs together. So that's got me excited. Really kind of looking forward to that. In other news, I'm outside of the box thinking my wife and I have a cabin we've inherited from my in-laws. We're going to raise the kings under the gun here. And the wife's kind of excited about doing some updates to the cabin. And I guess, frankly, I'm getting a little excited about it too. It's kind of a fun project. It's about an hour and a half south of town where I live. And we've got some big plans. Okay, we've got overpair. We're not slowing down on this board. We're hoping, he did call us with Jack 10 or something here, and we're going to punish him to continue. He didn't, and that's okay. Pair of nines on the button we're going to play. Anyway, she's got a whole bunch of plans, and she's got me thinking about it too, and I've got some ideas to do some improvements up there. Some of them pretty major, actually. Okay, now this is a tough call. This is, we were just talking about raise or fold, and raising here is my normal default play. I think, in fact, in this particular situation, I'm going to call with the idea of set mining. He's got a slightly bigger than average stack. We've flopped an overpair. There's diamonds on the board. I'm going to go ahead and bet, and it's going to be pretty hard for him to continue without any other diamond in his hand. So I am basically turning my hand into a bluff there. Raising preflop would have been perfectly fine. And in fact, 9 times out of 10, I am re-raising there, ensuring I'm isolating that player. But the cold call there is perfectly fine as long as you remember why you're calling. You're calling to hit a set. He was in early position by my definition of early position, so I got to put him on a relatively big hand, a stronger hand than average. And the danger of re-raising there is that I get 4-bet, and then I pretty much have to go away. Oh, and so I'm in the big blind there, so I'm going to click the sit out the next big blind, and this will be our last 4 or 5 hands. So we played for, close to 15, 20 minutes here. We made $6. isn't bad at the stakes. So anyway, that might be what I do the rest of this afternoon is start doing some planning for these cabin updates and remodeling. Kind of fun project, something completely different than the normal sit at a desk and work type stuff that I do. So get out and actually get my hands dirty would be good. Fold the 5-4 off. Fold the Queen 3 off. This is one of those hands, it's, folding it or open raising it, either one is fine. It's right on the cusp of not playable. We'll see what happens in front of us here. The issue we've got is we've got a small stack in the small blind. It might get sticky. I'm going to go ahead and open it, but then fold any kind of pressure. So we got a cold call here. Kind of interesting. Very dry board, but we're getting led into here. I have to believe this guy has some part of this, and it's kind of almost a blocking donk bet here, I guess is how I'd categorize that. But I'm going to let it go. No sense fighting there. So anyway, another session, short session. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope these sessions are helpful. I've gotten some feedback from you, from some of you folks on some email that suggests that this is helpful. Kind of my jabbering and talking through the whole thing, talking about theory and so on as I'm playing. I hope this is helpful to you, and I'm going to continue doing it. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and again, if you've got some comments or suggestions, I'd love to hear those too. So thanks for joining us again, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.